Welcome to Tapped In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez, and on this episode, we're going to be tackling why blue belts quit and hopefully how not to. So, the biggest hurdle that people will ever get after quit or starting jiu-jitsu is getting their blue belt and maintaining the momentum and maintaining their progression into the other belts. I think it's where most people will end up quitting. It's the best thing I can equate it to is there's this myth that I've arrived, and it's the first accomplishment. Some gyms do stripes, some gyms do not. If you do stripes, then maybe it mellows some of this out because now you have these little mile markers. But for gyms that don't, and just in general, when you get to blue belt, it's this major high and this major accomplishment. It might be one of the first ones that you've had in your life, athletically or even based on your goals. It might be one of the hardest things that you've done. Maybe you've never competed. Maybe you never played wrestling or any of the organized sports at all during high school like I did. So I didn't have those accomplishments to base stuff on. I went to the military, got through boot camp, AIT, and so on. So I had some, but athletically, I didn't really have anything. And when you reach that mark and you get that blue belt, it feels like you climbed a summit of some sort. But then when some time passes and the high comes off, you start looking up and you see there's a whole nother summit. And then you realize, and not that you didn't know before, but going through it kind of gives you fresh eyes. And you start looking at, oh, I got another summit, which is getting to purple. And then beyond that is another even higher summit, brown. And then way off in the distance, is the black belt summit, and that one looks unmeasurable and unable to climb. And each one gets higher and more steeper. The climate changes, the expectations change. The things that you thought you could attain, you become immeasurable and too far off in the distance. And that entire journey just looks like something that you're never gonna be able to finish or attain yourself. It is a long trek. It's a long march. If your average is 10 to 12 years to get to black belt, how many of us do anything for 10 to 12 years? Most people don't have relationships that get that long. Most people don't work at their job that long. Most people don't go to school for that long. So there's a thing in this process that is just wild when you really try to put it into words and measure what kind of hours they're going to have to commit to getting a certain belt, and then the progressive belts after that. If you're a competitor, that's even a whole nother road. If you become an instructor, that's another road. So it's really hard when you have this mentality of, I've arrived because I got my blue belt. And yes, it's an accomplishment. And yes, it should be applauded. It should be celebrated. You should get your pat on the back. But also, it doesn't really mean a ton when you look at the scope of things. It's something that you should be incredibly proud of yourself. But you should probably erase the moment of I've arrived, because there's a couple of other things that happen at this stage that become real apparent to you. People start going harder. You think, I've arrived, I have a certain skill set, I can do things, I can hold my own against other blue belts and maybe purple belts. I'm not doing anything with the brown belts, but I'm able to hold the line. And then you realize that while you're at blue, the same people who were kind of close skill-wise, at least you felt that way, they're now putting it on you a little harder, a little different. And you didn't realize that in your come up, they were coddling you a little. They were kind of like a parent wrestling with his child. They were allowing you to work. They were allowing you to get better. And as you got better, they started modulating their training with you based on what you were doing. Once you get to blue, the gloves are a little off. Now I get to, hey, welcome to blue belt. Especially that first roll, that celebratory roll with anyone that you meet. When I go and I if I roll with someone who's just newly promoted, I want to give them something. I want to welcome them to that new belt. And it doesn't mean that I'm a bully or that I wreck them or anything like that. But the things that weren't working, that were working at one point, I want you to know that they're not going to work right now. And then the transitions that maybe you were preventing me from getting, now I'm going to add a little bit of a different element so that the defense that you were using doesn't quite work as well. And it's just a little bit of a welcome to the club. Congratulations. Now the real work commences. And that real work sometimes can hurt someone's confidence and makes them doubt where they are. Understand that this is part of your growth. I don't want to go so hard on you at a white belt that you quit. I need you to get to blue. So I'm going to spend time with you. I'm going to invest time in mentoring and coaching and doing all the things that upper belts should be doing. And then when you get to that belt, I get to welcome you a little bit. After that initial roll, I'm back to what we're doing. But I just need you to, me personally, I need you to know, hey, welcome to the club. And at this club, things are working a little different. And sometimes there's a little bit of a shock when you realize, oh, I thought I was doing a lot better, but now I realize that they were coaching me along without giving me any words. So there's a little bit of a myth there, and it's hard for some people. And sometimes we give too much credit to the goal and attaining the goal, that there's an immediate letdown after getting that goal and realizing it's just another. I remember, unrelated, I had financed a new car, and I call it finance because I didn't buy it. The bank bought it, and I got to pay the bank back. And that's literally how I viewed that transaction. I got a new car, and I was happy I got a new car. I was excited for it. But also the reality for me was, I don't own this car. I just own the debt on it, and I got to pay that back. My mom was super proud of me and super happy that I had got a new car. And I didn't quite see it that way. I was like, I got debt. I got debt. It's not that, not something to celebrate. But she was ecstatic because it was, to her, looking at her son and sons being able to afford these things and being able to get to a certain level where they could do that was a major accomplishment. To me, I downplayed it a lot. And that's an issue with me. And sometimes we'll celebrate that blue belt, but there's a lot of stuff that comes in with it at the end or behind it, that once you look back and you realize where you are after getting your blue belt, for some people, it's too much. Some people will have to start dealing with like plateau problems, and they'll be in this position where they didn't understand why the steep learning or that quick learning curve slows down after blue. And you didn't know anything at white belt. You came in, you didn't know any of the positions, didn't know any of the names, you didn't know how to escape, you didn't know any of the submissions, you didn't know anything. So because you didn't know anything, it was really quick to fill that cup and make the cup feel like, I'm learning this, I'm learning that, and I remember the name to this, and I remember that. And then when you get to blue belt, you feel like there's like the brakes were hit and you're starting to slow down, and you don't feel the same learning progress that you felt at white belt. That is natural, and it's supposed to happen. You cannot learn as many things at blue as you did as white, because now you know too much. You know enough about the general game that now you're like putting teaspoons into the cup opposed to a good stream from the spout. And that's just part of the process. Once you get to blue and you start learning the techniques, it's no longer about whole lessons that you didn't see before getting dropped in there. And there's going to be some, but now it's more about, all right, let's start refining things. Let's start building a game. Let's start building timing. Let's really start transitioning from one thing to another, a failed thing to something else that you want to do. Let's start transitioning from a guard pass to a position that you really want, and then transitioning to the isolation of the arm and so on. So now it's more about building things that connect and less about building whole areas that you didn't have anything built on. And I think that part sometimes trips people up, and they feel like I'm stagnant and I'm not getting better anymore, and I'm not learning as much as I used to. And yes, you're not learning whole techniques like you used to, because by blue belt, you have a decent understanding of jiu-jitsu. Now it's like the intricate parts of each technique that you have to start to understand. And those intricate parts are so small and so minute sometimes that it's hard to put that into some kind of quantifiable measurement of my progress. It's not up for you to decide whether you're learning or not. That's the instructor's job. And if a good instructor is involved, they're going to give you tips and going to be like, hey, I see you keep messing this up. Why don't we do X, Y, Z? Why don't we adjust this angle that you're doing and then try it then? And it changes things. But that's the phase that you're going to end up in from, I think, late blue and right into purple. And into purple, you start throwing things out. Not forgetting them, but just you don't use them as often because now you're being more specialized in the things you're doing. Also, I think a lot of people start having life versus jiu-jitsu issues. I think we start dealing with, and I'm not saying everyone, kids, work, health, family health. Like you might have a family member that gets sick. You might have a wife that's dealing with some things. I might have a husband that lost their job, or kids that now need maybe extra attention because they're going through the teens, and you got to be at home a bit more to make sure they're doing the homework, or economic downturn, like whole bunch of things happen at every belt. But I think blue, it might be the hardest one to manage those things with because you don't have this long-standing foundation. And if I get to blue, let's say in a year and a half, a year, and then I have a life crisis, the first thing I'm going to cut oftentimes is jiu-jitsu. But if I've been training 7, 8, 9 years, I'm not going to be so quick to cut that. I'm going to find somewhere else to cut it, or I'm going to find ways to adjust my training. So maybe I'm cleaning up at the gym so that I can exchange that for tuition, or I'm going to open mats that don't require a fee, things like that. And the life aspect that gets in the way is really, really difficult to deal with. I've had friends who have lost their jobs. I have friends who have lost loved ones, friends who have had family get sick, kids get sick. And it's just one of those things that oftentimes for most of us, jiu-jitsu is a luxury. And when those things come about and I have to decide where my time or my money is going to go because I don't have an abundant source of either, oftentimes life is going to win in that sense. And it's our job to kind of, at the very least, communicate that with your instructor. Like, let us know what you're going through. Let us know that you're going through a health scare, jobless, whatever. Don't be embarrassed. I think that jiu-jitsu has become such a big part of all our lives that the thought of taking that away or trying to have to like separate yourself from that makes the life issue you're going through even compounded worse. So if you can communicate it with your instructors and be like, hey, I'm going through this. I might need to separate. I might need to cancel my membership. I don't know what's going on, but I have to focus on the stuff over here. Your instructor will often, most of us, will try to find a way to work with you. Maybe we get you a lesser rate for the next couple of months just to kind of help out. Maybe we set up some training on the side, or maybe we set up something where, again, maybe you work for the gym just a couple of hours, whether it's training or, helping us do a private lesson or do cleanup or whatever it might be. Maybe you're handy. Hey, the gym always needs some kind of repairs. I understand you're going through some stuff and money would help. You don't have to pay us, but we'll take your time in XYZ. And that's a great way to go around it. Mind you, if you go this route, I highly recommend that you set up something in writing as to what the expectations are of what you're going to be doing, what they expect, and that so both of you are on the same page when it comes to this. I've seen relationships sour when one person felt like they should be doing this, and this, and the other person was like, well, that's not what I agreed to. So anytime you're bartering or changing or exchanging services, get it in writing, whether it's a text, it doesn't have to be legal, but just something that you both can refer to and be like, this is what we agreed on, and then move from there. There's also an issue that I find at all belts, but blue is probably the heaviest. And it's that comparison trap of like, oh, this person's doing better than I am. This person's getting better, faster. They're constantly beating me. They've now got 2 stripes when I haven't had one yet. It's really hard to not compare, especially in a art where we're physically trying to dominate one each other. And that idea that because I submitted someone that it makes me better isn't actually truth. Sometimes that person's more skillful than you and better at depth at jiu-jitsu than you, but maybe you're a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. You weigh a bit more, and they haven't been able to adapt their style to beating you. So there's a whole host of things why someone might be advancing differently than you. And when you can learn to just adapt your thought and mindset of just keep your eye on your own lane, your own road, the other stuff kind of washes off and you don't feel so desperate. Now, there is something about having a healthy rival, someone that you respect, someone that respects you. Maybe you guys are similar in size, similar in weight, similar experience. You train similar amount of time. These are things that you can then kind of judge and assess a bit better. Mind you, if all these things are accurate and maybe they're coming to training 5 days a week and you're coming 2, not a healthy person to judge off of, because they're obviously going to be getting better than you because they're training more. And you just have to accept it. I've had training partners that I was on par with and we were going head to head with, and then for some reason they start training more and I completely get left in the dust. It's happened to me. It's going to happen to you. It's common. My suggestion is find someone, like I said, that's similar in as many different attributes and aspects as you. And then kind of just have a healthy relationship in competition. Like you can gauge where they are, you can gauge where you are. You guys have great rounds. I've always had a couple of training partners that I just have loved training with because it was always respectful, always geared towards getting better, but we were getting after it. We would train hard. We would roll hard with each other, but we weren't trying to hurt each other. We didn't hurt each other. We didn't try to show the other one up. We were just competitive, and that's a great thing to have. But sometimes life is going to change. Sometimes you're going to be at a better situation than they are, and maybe they have life issues that come up and they don't train as much. So you're going to start passing them. Your job is to find another healthy rival, someone else that you can kind of gauge things off of. Don't gauge anything off of. If you're not a competitor, don't gauge your stuff off of a competitor. Doesn't make any sense. They're competing. Their training is going to be different than yours. If you're someone who's only coming twice a week, don't compare yourself to someone who's coming 5 and 6 times a week. Doesn't help. And at the end, keep your expectations to realistic measures. You are not, this isn't your identity. If you don't get your blue belt in the time frame goal that you have, it doesn't make you anything less. Grading students is this unique thing to every instructor, and sometimes students may get overlooked and sometimes they don't. And sometimes you're going to training X amount of times, but the head instructor, the one that does the evaluations, isn't at those classes. So that's a whole nother thing to deal with. So the comparison aspect is find healthy rivals. The minute it becomes unhealthy for you and you're too wound up in like how you're doing, you're not enjoying yourself. So come to class, have healthy goals, have a healthy rival, and have healthy expectations and goals for yourself. And sometimes you're going to have to adapt those because of the life things that come up. Sometimes you're going to have to adapt those because you have an injury. So healthy rivals is a good thing. Falling into the comparison trap and letting it kind of like dictate how you feel is a whole nother thing. I've experienced this one. Culture and community. This is weird. So sometimes when you start jiu-jitsu and I've said this before, you will pick a gym based on price and location. You typically won't know anything about the instructor or if they're any good. If you go to Google and you look up reviews, most times, the reviews are going to be good to excellent. You will not know if a gym is toxic unless you see it yourself, or if you have friends in the industry who can gear you towards one school or another. So what happens is we pick up a school, we go, looks cool, people look friendly, we enjoy what we're doing, we sign up, and then a year or two in, you get to pick, you get a peek behind the curtain, you see a few things here or there, they're a little alarming. Most people will brush it off and be like, it's a one-time thing, whatever. And these things don't have to be criminal. They don't have to be outright disgusting behavior. Sometimes it's the way an instructor talks to someone. Sometimes it's the way a gym handles someone's injury, or how a gym handles women and children, how a gym handles being questioned. Those things you won't see right away. If a gym has a healthy amount of women, it's always a good sign, in my opinion. If there's a healthy amount of kids in the kids, that's usually a good sign, but not the end all. Sometimes things are occurring even with those things being successful. So once you're in a gym for a year or two, you get a good feel for everyone around you because you start to learn everyone's tendencies, including the instructors. And sometimes you start picking things up and you start questioning certain things, and you see things that are not something that you might want to bring your kid to or your wife to. And if that's the case, if you feel like, this isn't quite the environment that I would bring my wife to, maybe that's not the environment for you. So then, because you're a bit more aware of the aspects and the things that are happening within that community, some of us will make changes based on that. And oftentimes you'll see people who have been in the culture a bit longer decide, hey, this isn't really for me, and they'll go somewhere else. Or it may not even be culture and community. It could be, hey, I want to compete now. And the gym that I'm at doesn't really have a competition team, doesn't have competition classes. The coach never shows up to the competitions. That's a little bit more community and culture. But sometimes you can also outgrow the gym that you're at, either because you're more aware of the community and culture, or your goals have changed from what they used to be. You might be at a gym that does a lot of self-defense, but you want to compete. Or the opposite, you're at a gym that competes a lot and you're 44 and you just kind of want to relax and you can't find rounds that are more to your speed. So you might want to go to a gym like, hey, what's it like over here? What's the tempo? Are we older friendly? Because I got to go to work tomorrow. So there's a whole host, but a lot of it is just based on you didn't know what you were signing up for because you didn't know what you didn't know. And that's just part of getting a little bit more experience. You've been in for a year or two. You got a belt. You understand how the promotion ceremony goes. Maybe you didn't like the promotional ceremony. Like, I've seen people whip people as part of the, I find it disgusting. Not something I want to be a part of. So as you get into the culture, you're going to see different things within a gym that are going to be good, bad, and they're going to sway you to make a decision. My hope is that this kind of helps students understand some of the takeaways of what it's going to be like when you get to blue, or if you're in blue, maybe you're struggling with a few things. If you have any questions on any of this stuff, or maybe you have questions on other things related to this, you please hit me up, dfm.2099 on Instagram and Threads. If you'd like to work with me, dfmcoaching.com. Until next time, thank you.